evening. Now at 11, a CBS News Miami exclusive. A police lieutenant suing the city speaks publicly for the first time.
She accuses Miami's police chief of making racist comments, then demoting her after the commander pushed back.
CBS News Miami's Larry Seward is in Coconut Grove, where city leaders say it's just a money grab.
Lawyers here for the city of Miami say they look forward to challenging that lawsuit in court and deny all of the allegations in it. The lieutenant who sued used to be commander of this very district for the Miami Police Department until Chief Manny Morales demoted her, a move that she and her lawyer say is rooted in racism.
I'm just fighting to protect the rights of equality.
Reading a letter with her lawyer beside her, 18-year Miami police veteran Wesleyne Lewis Francois defended herself and the lawsuit, seeking $1 million because of claims against her boss, Chief Manny Morales, his alleged comments about her hair, and the demotion that followed.
I believe that no person should ever tolerate being disrespected or discriminated against based on who they are, what they look like, what they represent, or the color of their skin.
4 years ago, Lewis Francois was commander for Miami PD's Coconut Grove district. While Lewis Francois felt love in that community, this lawsuit claims Morales criticized her hair and told her to tone down her look as it would not be accepted by the Coconut Grove community.
He's referring to the fact that she is a black Haitian Bahamian female, and that's how she looks. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is a very racist comment.
Attorney Michael Pizzi took questions for his client. He claims Chief Morales retaliated when Lewis Francois pushed back.
After she objects to the racist comments, they put her under the supervision of a major who was accused by the civilian investigative panel of using the N-word. Then they humiliate her publicly.
First, he says Lewis Francois lost her role leading the honor guard. Then Chief Morales took away her title, demoting her to lieutenant, a financial loss of $30,000 to $50,000 a year. This lawsuit claims Morales led an effort to rack up reprimands against Lewis Francois, ordering her to take on jobs while she was on approved leave. The lawsuit claims it's discrimination and retaliation. In a statement, a City of Miami spokesperson responded, Ms. Lewis's complaint is merely an attempt to obtain payment from the city for a position she no longer holds. The city looks forward to challenging her false allegations in court.
Their response that we don't want to hear it, it's all about money, that really speaks loudly as to why that department needs serious change at the top.
We reached out to Miami police for comment from Chief Morales, but did not hear back. Meanwhile, the city does have a grievance policy in place for all of its employees, but Lewis Francois' lawyer believes a federal lawsuit is more likely to bring change. In Coconut Grove, Larry Seward, CBS News.
Hey, I want to welcome everybody to another episode of You and the Law podcast show. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show, Virgil Green. And as always, I got to introduce the brother who sits next to me every Thursday afternoon, who goes by the name of Chief, the ultimate chief, Swaggy One, the ultimate beast.
The beast is a little bit under the weather tonight, my brother.
Yeah, man, I can tell. I can tell by the appearance that same energy is not there.
Yeah, I'm getting there though, man. It's yeah, I'm getting there. How you doing,
Man, I'm doing good. You know, it's you know, you don't want to catch a cold, but you especially don't want to catch a cold in the wintertime.
No, you don't, man. And but you know what, Virgil? Once again, man, we had a tragic death. There was a tragic death of a young officer in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Terrell, Texas, lost a young officer who had only been on the department 4 months. Lost him this past week, and I want to send prayers to his family and to the police department and to the city.
Yeah, Keith, you know, man, you know, I think we talked about this last week when there was another tragic incident where an officer in Texas lost his life. And, you know, it was right before that was before Thanksgiving. And here, you know, we're coming up on, you know, just weeks from Christmas. And, you know, it's a lot for a family to deal with, a community and a police department to deal with when an officer loses his life in the line of duty.
But we're talking 25 miles apart.
Yeah. So this was in what, Turl?
Terrell, Texas, East Texas,
Yeah.
which is about 25 miles from Greenville, Texas, where another young officer was murdered a couple weeks ago. So
Yeah.
prayers to that.
Yeah.
East Texas communities.
Yeah, and these officers don't have a lot of experience on the departments. I believe, you just mentioned this officer had, less than 5 months?
Yeah, he just graduated in July.
Yeah.
The other officer had only been with Greenville for about a year, but he had worked previously for another department. So,
Yeah.
So, well, Virgil.
Yes, sir.
Our topic this week is something that I think we really have to bring notice to. That we really have to discuss. I will tell you, very disturbed regarding and knowing the trials that I've seen African American female officers go through over the years. I worked for a department where Black female officers were they were harassed. Because of the way they talked, or because of the way their hair was worn, or because of the way their nails were worn, or they didn't seem emotional enough, and and things like that. So I know this has been a problem in law enforcement for years.
Yeah, Keith. I think hopefully we'll have a lot of women, whether you're in law enforcement or not in law enforcement, join us in on this conversation in the chat. Share your thoughts, your opinions about the topic that we're talking about tonight, which is why is the appearance of Black female officers questioned? And Keith, I think some will probably, this isn't a topic that you see two men in law enforcement talk about. And I think it just goes to show how sincere we are to the work that we do, and the fact that, this is something that you've seen, that I've seen, and it continues to happen. And the question is why? Why does it continue to happen? And why do Black women face other challenges that their white counterpart women don't face? When it comes to their hair, if it comes to their nails, even the color of their nails. I've heard women say, I was told that, the color of my nails was too bright. Or, and so it's very concerning that people in the positions that you and I hold don't share the same beliefs that you and I have.
Well, the color of a person's fingernails or hair does not make them a good or bad officer. We talk about professionalism. But really, what is professionalism? I remember Chief Danielle Outlaw, when she left Oakland, California, and went to Portland, Oregon. There were some concerns when she had her hair braided. Her hair was braided when she was sworn in. And there was also some concerns when she wanted the Black National Anthem also played at her swearing in. And she was ridiculed for that. The fact of, why is her hair braided? Why the Black National Anthem? Fast forward, this young lady goes to Philadelphia Police Department. And at that point, I believe women were not even allowed to wear, they were only allowed to wear clear flesh. And Danielle immediately changed that policy, basically saying, why is it just clear fingernail polish? And so, female officers were allowed to wear fingernail. I did a deal when I was a chief in Norman, Oklahoma. When Norman has recently, in the last 2 years, hired his first African-American female officer in the history of the department. And we did a workshop, Women in Policing. And there was a perception that a female officer had to look a certain way. And I brought in a mentee of mine who is like my sister. I brought her in, who has experienced a lot of this. And she said, not just from the law enforcement profession, but just from the community perspective, that they believe that, it's interesting that, she was questioned, or she found it that people were really, really, how do you say it, surprised that she got her nails done, that she got her hair done, that she wore makeup, that eyelashes, that perfume and things like that. There's this perception out there that a female should look a certain way in law enforcement, that you have to look. And so I look at it as you're not wanting, you're telling a female that she's got to tone it down. Well, what's tone it down? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, that's what
toning it down means, man.
Yeah.
If you tell somebody to tone it down and you can't specifically say what they need to tone down, then why bring that up? You need to tone it down for this area. Tone it down for this area. What does that mean, Virgil?
Keith, and I say this, I think this goes back to something that women have continued to talk about, that you have men making decisions about what women can wear, what women should do with their bodies. And it surprises me that these are men who have wives, and they have mothers, they have daughters, they have sisters. I think it's very disrespectful for another man to tell a woman that you need to tone it down. Like you said, what does tone it down mean?
What is tone it down?
Yeah. And Keith, I'm hoping that some of our female officers will really tune in on this, because I know one in Oklahoma City who has locks, and it is definitely has not went against agency's policy. But if a woman wants to wear a hairstyle in some other form that does not violate the agency policy, which none of this has violated these agency policy, it's more of, hey, I don't want you looking like that, and I'm gonna tell you what I want you to look like, and if you don't do what I want you to do, then I'm going to demote you. But that's real concerning, Keith, when another man of another race tell a woman, tone it down.
It's not just men of a certain other races. It's chiefs of color. So let me say this. Then it comes back to this. There's a safety issue with the hair being too long. Okay, they put it in a ponytail. You can put it in a ponytail. There's ways that I get it. I understand the fact that you don't want someone's hair hanging down below their collar. Someone can grab their hair. I get that. But there are rules and regulations that you can use to address that. Hair can be addressed. It can be cut. It can be designed in ways that it minimizes the chance of it being used where it can hurt you. Now, Virgil, I will say this. Polka dot hair, yellow hair, I get it. I can see that.
Yeah, I think if you got, all these different shades of color in your hair, and it again, if it goes against what has been a long-standing agency policy related to the dress code, yeah, that's something different. But I think when you have women who are very professional with the way they look, right, and they're presenting themselves to the community and to especially to the community. And I think, this is, this officer that filed this lawsuit in Miami apparently has a very good relationship with that community that she serves. If that community doesn't have a problem with it, Keith, why does this chief have a problem with it?
Well, Virgil, the question also comes up was, when was that policy written? Was there a policy outlining the specifics of appearance? Because the policies that I've seen basically says it talks about earrings. It does talk about ponytails. It talks about nails being neatly trimmed and things like that. It talks about hygiene and things like that for both men and women. But when you start digging into, well, she shouldn't wear braids, or they shouldn't wear twist, or they shouldn't wear green fingernail polish and things like that, you're getting into a point where you're basically saying is that fingernail polish is defining the ability of the job that female officer is capable of doing, in which it does not.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. What's not happening, Virgil, and what should be happening is that with the changes in law enforcement, with the changes in with the multiple changes in law enforcement, I do think it's time that police chiefs sit down with female officers and start looking their policies.
Well, especially Keith, and this, didn't mean to interrupt you, but especially with this national initiative behind 30 by 30.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That is being, and again, I think some agencies have very good intentions of trying to diversify their departments to bring in more women, and especially women of color. And some are doing it just to get that notoriety or that recognition that, hey, look what we're doing. But like you said, are you really looking at your policies to change those policies to fit with this generation of women who you're trying to get into policing?
Well, what's toned down, Virgil? Back on that, man. Yeah. What's toned down? Or you don't look the part. What does that mean?
Keith, how would, let's just say, would that chief or say that to another male who has tattoos? You got tattoos all over your arms, and you say, hey, you need to tone that down. I mean, the tattoos can't go away. So,
well, let me ask you this: we have accepted tattoos in the departments of where I've been chief. I've accepted tattoos. Other than the fact that as long as they're not inappropriate or anything that's racially inappropriate, sexually inappropriate, I have allowed those. They have to disclaim that. But I'm saying is that what's wrong with someone having twist? What's wrong with someone having braids? What's wrong with the female officer having fingernails? Now, when we start talking about fingernails, should there be a limit on the length of them?
The length.
I think so.
And Keith, and I think that's where you bring in women and let those women make those decisions instead of people who look like me and you, men, make those decisions without having women saying, this is what we feel is a standard.
Yes, because what it does, what I'm hearing people say when you tell a female officer that you can't wear twists, you can't wear braids, you can't wear fingernail polish, you can't wear eyelashes and things like that, you're telling them that you have to look this way. You can't look too feminine. That's how that can be misconstrued by some people. You're telling someone that they are looking too feminine. Now, why do you look too feminine? Just like how does a man look too masculine? You have to be really careful with putting these policies in place, man. And, we've gotten away from this where we've said that, when we do our physical agility test, there's not a man. When I first got in, they had a male requirement and female requirement. Did away with that. Okay, good. We needed to go away with that. But this thing about, you look people might not take you seriously. You look like you're going to a club. Well, what does going to a club look like? What is going to a club? What is going to a club?
Especially when you got on a uniform. You're wearing a department issue uniform. You're not wearing some skirt. You're not wearing some blouse that is revealing or anything like that. But again, Keith, I go back to what I just said a while ago. You got men making decisions on what they think women should look like in the workplace, and especially in policing, without having women being a part of those conversations.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. Policy should be updated and reviewed on a regular basis, and you need to look and see. I'll give you a perfect example, man. There was a fire department that basically said that no one with long hair could be on the fire department, and based on the fact of they based it on, Virgil, male firefighters. They never took into effect that one day they would have female firefighters. Mm-hmm. And this policy was written in 1982, and we're talking in 2017.
Yeah. Wow.
And so you can't, and so basically it was, well, we're telling our female firefighters they have to cut their hair. They had only hired one female firefighter in the history of that organization. Mm-hmm. Telling this female firefighter you have to cut your hair
to a certain length
because the policy says that.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, you know what, we're going to go back and look at our policy and determine if there's any safety risk and see how we can address the needs of our diverse community when it comes to male and female. Because because law enforcement is not a male profession. Firefighting is a male profession. Nursing is not a female profession. Mm-hmm. These are professions that male and females have a right to do and are performing. Mm-hmm. So our policies have to make sure that we're not so focused on whether their hair looks this way or that and the other. I mean, when it comes to the point where people feel as though they can't be themselves. Now, I'm all about policy. I believe your uniform should be crisp. I believe your hair should be neat. I believe that your appearance, your hygiene, everything should be neat. If you're going to have a policy for hair, if someone has long hair, then put it in a ponytail, put it up in a bun, whatever. But if you want to wear eyelashes, wear eyelashes. But these are the limits on the eyelashes. These are the limits on the fingernails. It doesn't say you can't have color. I think so. We do have to start sitting down with our officers, both male and female officers, and determining, okay, what meets the needs of our organization. And you brought up a point, Virgil, that I had when we started talking about this topic, the 30 by 30 initiative. If we're talking about talking about we want to reach a number of 30% of females in law enforcement in the nation by 2030, we definitely have to start looking at our policies and procedures and the way we supervise and who we have in these positions. I remember that we had my classmate when I went through the academy in Arlington, very calm, Black female, wasn't emotional, didn't scream, was able to have, she had amazing command presence, able to get things under control based on her calm demeanor and her very steady voice. She was told that she was not loud enough. She was told that she was not emotional enough, that she had to yell and scream and get people's attention. And then they even brought in another female officer who had drank the Kool-Aid and during the scenarios was yelling and screaming and cursing at someone. And she was told that that's the way a female officer needs to react because nobody is going to respect you unless you do that. Mm-hmm. So you had So basically, you're told that you have to act a certain way, and that's stuck with me. And I always say it in my mind. I always start paying really, really close attention to things like that. As a training supervisor, as a commander, as a chief, to determine if that stuff continued to happen throughout policing. And in some situations, it did.
Yeah. Well, Keith, what does this say about the chief and others in the command staff with trying to build a better relationship with the minorities in that department, and also trying to build a relationship with the community that they serve? Because again, it's how does the community feel about this? Because again, this woman, when you look at her hairstyle, it is not just all over the place. It's not outrageous. And then when you look at, her nationality, I think she is Haitian
and
Bahamian. And so, what is her cult? What does her culture have to do? How should that be respected? Not what it should have to do, but how should a culture be respected? Because again, I know, I'm up here in Minneapolis now, and Minneapolis has a large population of women from Somalia. They are slowly hiring women from Somalia. Now, they wear the scarves. Now, this agency has been has changed their pop. Hajid, yeah. And so, how do again, here's a department that is looking at the community that they are serving and making sure that the agency looks like the community that they're serving. And so, but here you have another agency halfway across the country who is saying you can't wear your hair like that. And what was the word, Keith, that he said?
Tone it down.
Yeah, tone it down. What is that?
So, Virgil, let me tell you what I think happens. And I know Manny. I know Manny in Miami. I know him. He's not a bad guy. And I'm sure.
Keith, let me say this. You know him, but you're gonna say he's not. But there again, where is that side of you that says, you know what, I may believe this, but this is not the direction that I want my department to go.
I agree with you. And there's probably some things. Well, I don't know. Probably, I'm sure there's some things that we don't know. I think everybody. There's always two sides and the truth somewhere in the middle. But
yeah, Keith. But this woman she came through the ranks. She
did. And what I mean by that is, yeah, that is true. There's always
two sides to the story.
Don't know, but this is beginning to be a common factor when it comes to Black females and their hair and their nails, and they've been asked to tone down and don't do this or don't do this or talk this way. You talk this way, you pronounce words this way, and things like that. And so this is beginning to be a ongoing issue. And as a chief, man, you have to have that emotional intelligence and that sensitivity. Let me ask you this, and to the audience, what's more accepted? To tell someone that they need to tone their looks down because the community doesn't like that, okay? Mm-hmm. Or is it better to bring someone in and say, hey, listen, I want to make sure everybody here feels well represented. And if I'm missing something, please tell me. Mm-hmm. These are our policies when it comes to appearance. Here's our policies, and we try to make it a very generic policy so we don't have it where it addresses the needs of only Hispanic women, only African-American women, only Asian women, only white women, just to say that women. We try to make it general where it addresses the needs of all of our officers. But are we missing something when it comes to hair? Are we missing something when it comes to nails? Are we missing something where it comes to eyelashes? Help me understand to make sure that I'm not missing something. Which one do you think will be more receptive? I would believe the second part's going to be more receptive because you're asking to be included. You're asking them to be inclusive in helping to understand what the needs of the department are. And those are the things. It's like, asking the members of the department who are LGBTQ, what are the needs of the members of the department that are LGBTQ? What am I missing? Is there something that I'm missing? Chiefs don't do that. They feel as though if they don't hear anything, there's nothing going on. You have to ask questions. You have to talk. You have to be willing to listen. And then you have to be willing to go to your legal advisor and say, hey, am I missing something? These are the trends that we're seeing in law enforcement. We're seeing hairstyles change. We're seeing more officers, female officers with fingernail, wanting to wear fingernail design, polish and eyelashes and different glasses and things like that. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me how we ensure that we're not separating people just based on their appearance. And I think we're missing those opportunities, Virgil.
Yeah. Well, Keith, there's been a big push since George Floyd to bring in the community more. When you're talking about, reforming police, my question is, here Miami, are they having the community come in and sharing these things with the community? Because again, if the community says, hey, we don't have a problem with the way this officer looks, and the fact that what message are you sending to other young Black women who might be thinking about joining this department, but then say, you know what, I'm not going to join that department. I'm going to go join this department because of how this woman was treated.
Or women in general, Verge. I mean, because the word spills out that, man, they treat women, not just African American, Hispanic, and Asian women, they treat women differently. And so, but you're absolutely right, especially if you are talking about your police department reflecting your community. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah. Keith, to you and the listeners, I've got another news clip I want to play. And this happened a couple years ago out of the DC area, where 10 current and former Black female officers filed a lawsuit against the DC Police Department. And it just shows this isn't just an isolated incident. This is something that is happening at many police departments across the country when it comes to how Black women are being treated. So I'm gonna play this news story, and on the other side of that, we'll talk about some of the things that these women are addressing and how they were treated within their departments.
All right, all new at 5:30, a group of Black female officers, police officers, are filing a first-of-its-kind class action lawsuit against the D.C. Police Department. Our Matthew Torres is here with more on this multi-million-dollar suit and what these officers are claiming, Matthew.
Well, Lorenzo, 10 former and current female D.C. police officers claim they were victims of racial and sexual discrimination. They also say they were forced to work in a hostile workplace with a male-dominated culture of bullying and intimidation. And if they complained, the women say they were subjected to intensive, pervasive retaliation. Their concerns were dismissed by the MPD Equal Employment Office. According to the lawsuit, the women are seeking $100 million in compensation for alleged unlawful practices by MPD. Chanel Dickerson is an assistant chief of police.
But the worst of it, we were labeled as troublemakers, angry Black women. And I'm here to say that we are not angry Black women. We are tired women. And no one should have to endure what we did.
And make the changes necessary, because every chief of police that has been tasked with fixing this has failed to do so.
DC Police sent us a statement from DC Police. This is what they said. While we cannot discuss the specific allegations due to pending litigation, the Metropolitan Police Department is committed to treating all members fairly and equitably. We take these allegations seriously, and we will be reviewing them thoroughly and responding accordingly. A spokesperson for the DC Attorney General's office told WSA 9 they had not received the lawsuit yet and cannot comment. Lorenzo?
Well, we know you're going to stay on top of it until it's resolved.
You know, Keith, I got a question for you and those who are listening. How do you get yourself there? There are things you can do to make sure you don't get your agency in a position like this here. If you're treating everybody fairly and equally, and you want to talk about equity, and you want to talk about all these other, you know, words that are being thrown around, I think if you are a leader who says that, you know, these things will not happen under my command, they should not happen. But we continue to see them happen across many departments across the country, Keith.
As a police chief, you can't touch, you cannot, it's difficult to touch everybody in your department. It's difficult to know what everybody inside your department is doing, but you have to listen to the little bitty things that you may normally not think are important. We believe that those individuals who work for us are carrying out our mission and our vision. 9 times out of 10, it's not necessarily the police chief, Virgil, and to the listeners, it's those people who work for him. That are carrying out these policies, that are interpreting these policies the way that they feel is necessary to cover their agenda.
Mm-hmm.
When you are a police chief, when you start hearing the grumblings of things, you have to address it. You have to start asking if these things are occurring.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I truly believe an open door policy is important. Now, this is the problem with that. If an employee believes that they still, even though you have an open door policy, you'll listen to things, if they believe that they're going to be retaliated against
mm-hmm.
by someone in their chain of command because they went and talked to the chief, then it's still not going to happen.
Well, yeah, Keith, and you know, because go ahead.
And so you have to put things in place, man. You have to, you know, I've told officers before, they'll come and tell me stuff. And as a chief, you have to figure out how to address that without attaching their name to it. Because you don't want them retaliating against. There is no way as a chief of police that I don't believe that people are retaliated against based on the fact that they're retaliated against by people they report to. I know that happens.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
But I can't be naive enough to believe it's not happening. I have to know it's not happening. I have to put things in place to minimize that from occurring. But that's why it's important, man. And you got to look at what are the top issues facing law enforcement right now. Recruiting, okay? Retention, okay? Recruiting and retention of minorities, especially females.
Mm-hmm.
You should be reviewing your policy, or you should have an ad hoc committee that address and keep the chief apprised of the things that they need to know in order to ensure that these things aren't occurring within their department, and their department is addressing these issues head on.
Yeah. Well, you know, Keith, as you just mentioned in this one of the comments in the chat by Brent, who is on LinkedIn, says that, you know, I believe policies have to be continuously reviewed with federal laws. He says from his experience, a lot of policies are written for and during Pacific generations.
Absolutely.
You know, because you just mentioned about a policy from 1982, and what was it, 2017 or
yeah, whatever. It was 2017. So you're talking 25 years.
Yeah. And so,
25 years, 35 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it is, and again, so a lot has changed, a lot has evolved with policing over the past several years, the past decade, but policing is still behind other uh, other organizations, uh, and there has been that resistance to that change, Keith, and to the listeners, because just of the culture of policing that we don't, huh?
But you still didn't answer my question.
What's the question?
What is toned down?
Man, I'm still trying to figure that out. I mean, toned down.
Can somebody tell me what toned down is? Dr.
Yeah.
Brent, can you tell me what toned down is?
Yeah.
I want to know what that is.
You know, for those who were, who are watching on our YouTube channel, I don't think there's a way for you to share your comments, but if you're listening and watching on LinkedIn and Facebook pages, what do you think tone down means? Because we're trying to figure that out. What does tone down mean? Because again, from the male lens to a woman, what does that mean? And Keith, I know you will probably disagree with me on this. How is this any different? And I really don't want to get into the part of the race part of it, but I think it's hard to ignore it. What is the difference from a Black woman wearing her hair like this and you having a white female officer who wears her hair a certain way, or she wears and nothing is said about it? But when a Black woman does it, then a Black woman is being, you need to tone it down. That's too flamboyant, or that's too, you're showing too much.
You got to give more specifics on that, because that wasn't a very specific. Be more specific on what you mean.
Well, to be specific, let's just say you've got, a white female officer who has her hair in a nice hairstyle.
What's a nice hairstyle version?
I'm gonna say there again, now you're gonna say, what is a nice hairstyle?
That's what I want to say, because when you start saying nice hairstyle, tone it down, that's very subjective.
Well, it is, and again, I think Brent just put something in the chat. He said there is not a true definition. It is based on an individual interpretation. The problem with that is everyone is different and has some form of prejudice to certain things. I mean, you're right, Brent. I mean, how you individually, again, goes back to everybody knows that the police chief he's the man. Pam just says tone down is strictly a culture bias perception as well as a microaggression. It is.
Well,
so to go back to what is a nice hairstyle?
Yeah, what's a nice hairstyle? What's appropriate? What's toned down?
Again, Keith, and I think this is where to say, oh, this looks nice, this doesn't look nice. I would never want to put myself in a position to tell a woman, yeah, you know what, your hairstyle looks real nice today, but hey, you know what, you need to tone it down. Those locks or braids, you got too many different colors in your hair.
And that's why when you look at policy in police departments, it's based on the fact that you can't wear slides, you can't wear certain things. You make it very specific, but you talk about nice, neat hairstyle. If you want to say no certain color dyes and things like that, you can do that. But you got to be careful saying, because I've seen some very nice, neat cut hairstyles that are dyed yellow, that are dyed purple.
Mm-hmm.
I see very neat,
Mm-hmm.
very neat, very precision cut. So you have to be really careful in saying tone down, neat. You know, you got to be careful with that.
Yeah, you do. And
Don't
Keith, I
want
want to say,
someone wearing dyed hair. When you say dyed hair, colors of blue, purple, green, pink, then you can put that in your policy. You know, you can put that in your policy, but you don't put in your policy your hair needs to be toned down.
yeah. Well, Keith, you know, let's touch on this real quick because I got another news clip I want to address. You've got policing is supposed to be really connecting to the community. And this happened in Miami, and there's a large population of people from the LGBT community. And you do have a lot of men and women who have expressed who have shown, you know, what are not shown, but they've been able to say, hey, I'm gay, I'm lesbian, or whatever they want to call it, you know, whatever. But let's just say you have somebody who says, hey, I want to dye my hair during this specific time of the month. Is that going to be accepted? Because it's not a permanent hairstyle, but you're celebrating and recognizing the LGBTQ community. Could you see that being a problem, especially with women?
You know, Virgil, I'm an open-minded chief, and you know things like that. If members of the department who are LGBTQ were to come to me and say it would just be the same way if someone were to say, "Hey, chief, you know this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and the female officers would like to dye their hair pink." We'd sit down and we talk about it. I'd get the specifics. I wouldn't automatically say no.
Mm-hmm.
I'd get the specifics. Because I'm going to have to be able to explain that to other people. I don't think I would have a problem with that. It's just like for a recognition of Domestic Violence Month, purple.
Yeah.
I think that you have to sit down and understand what a person's goal is for that. And we're at a time in law enforcement, Virgil, that, you know, to me, it's no different than beards. You know, police departments are very receptive now, are open to facial hair. They're open to tattoos.
And it wasn't that way.
It wasn't that way. But you can't,
I mean, we're just talking maybe 10 years ago, the last decade. It wasn't accepted.
Yeah. And you know, now you'll even see some departments where you'll see male and female officers that will have nose piercings. Not the ones that are very they'll have the subtle ones that you really can't, but they'll do it. So as a chief, you have to realize these are the times. You just have people, I'm not going to bend. That has no place in law enforcement. Well, how's that affecting that individual? How does that affect who that person is?
And how does it affect them with the job that they want to do and that you're putting them in a position to do?
Right. And that's why I say, man, the conversations have to take place. You have to be open. You have to be open to change. There might be just some things you may not be able to do. I think you have to go and you have to talk to your legal and say, officers brought this to my attention. This is something they'd like to do. Is there anything within there's nothing in the departmental policy that says they can't. Is there anything within the city policy? Is there anything within the university policy or whomever that would prohibit them from doing this? The chiefs don't want to go have those conversations. They want to just say, no, we're not doing that. And I'm not that person. I want to make sure that I'm covering all, because if somebody comes to me and they have a good idea, I'm gonna at least entertain it, to at least have an open conversation about it. Mm-hmm. But we got to stop with this toning down and this doesn't look professional, and you know, people don't like that, and people are talking, and you know, and that doesn't look very professional. But what's professional? I mean, the uniform.
Yeah.
You're in a uniform. I mean, I don't get it, man.
Yeah. Well, Keith, as I mentioned earlier about the 30 by 30, it's going to be interesting to see if that group comes out and join in with this officer in her the issue that she has faced with her department. Because again, this kind of goes to show you, if you're true about this initiative, you're going to stand by women to make sure women are treated equal. And because Miami has a large population of women within their department, just like Atlanta has a large population of women in their department. You came from an agency in Little Rock that has a large population of women in their department. So it's going to be interesting to see how the 30 by 30, which it's an initiative, but there are women who are a part of that, if they will come out and speak out in support of this officer. Because one of the concerns, Keith, that I had when I played that news clip was, now they're going to do everything they can to make this officer, who they promoted and put her in a position to be, what was she, a commander?
Yeah,
I think she was. Yeah. And so now you're going to do everything you can to discredit this woman and make this woman look bad because she's trying to protect her rights. I think that is another concern, that you're going to go to use every opportunity that you have to make these women look like they don't, like it's just about money, and it's not about money.
Well, it's going to be interesting, man. I just think that we have to start looking at in 2025, and as we end 2024 and we start 2025, and it's just, it's the exact same thing that we looked at when we told men that they could wear beards, and when we told officers they could have tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have to start looking at some of our policies.
Yeah.
To make sure that they're not too restrictive.
Yeah.
When it comes to female officers.
Yeah.
I still want to know what tone down is.
Yeah, man. Anybody out there, if you know what tone down means, please put it in the chat. Let us know. But Keith, I want to play this other
safe word. I think it's a safe word that people use.
What Pam said, it was, what did she say? It was, it was a word of microaggression. So
tone down is strictly a cultural based perception as well as microaggression.
Yeah. Hey, Keith, I want to play this other news clip, and I want to say I think this is out of the Baltimore area, where 4 or 5 black female officers were treated the same way. And this was several years ago. They filed a lawsuit against that department for the similar acts that this female officer in Miami is going through.
The officers provided traumatic details of their experiences on the job, not on the street, but within the department. They say they are in fear of their brothers and sisters in blue.
At what point will BPD self-monitor against the department's own known, complicit, insidious, and institutional culture of sex and race-based discrimination?
Demanding change and accountability, 4 city black female police sergeants filed separate lawsuits against the city police department, each seeking $10 million in damages, alleging sexual harassment, racial discrimination, and retaliation. Sergeant Danica Yampierre says the hostile work environment resulted in the premature birth of her baby.
Causing me to deliver my baby on the sidewalk without any professional help in 30-degree weather.
Jasmine Roulette alleges a white officer sexually harassed her, and after she complained, she says co-workers humiliated her.
Such as having toy rats placed on my desk throughout the department in efforts to intimidate me
I have been called a snitch after these investigations have been leaked through the department.
Sergeant Will-I Grant reported a co-worker for using the N-word against a police applicant.
The police commissioner then told me that I was imagining all of the bad things that would happen to me if I reported misconduct. He further stated that I was looking at someone else in a coffin and placing myself in the coffin.
Tashana Gaines left the agency and tried to return to her old rank with the support of the Equal Opportunity Commission, but says she was denied.
I was discriminated against, lied to about non-existent policies, and retaliated against by Commissioner Davis and several others appointed by him.
We ask, when will the culture of corruption in the Baltimore Police Department finally end?
The lawsuit is supported by the National Black Officers Association, the National Association of Black Law Enforcement, and the Baltimore chapter of the NAACP. The Baltimore City Police Department has no comment on the litigation, but they have filed motions to dismiss all the cases. Reporting from City Hall, David Collins, WBAL TV 11 News.
Keith, you asked me where was this at? It was Baltimore. Yeah. And again, Keith, these are just some of the incidents that women have experienced and continue to experience at departments. And in every situation you see where there's an effort to discredit these women, to make these women look like it's all about money. But these are women who chose to get into this profession, and now they're subject to this type of a hostile work environment. And I'm gonna ask you this question. I have not, through preparing for this here topic, I've not seen that many Black men stand beside these women to show that their support. And I think this is on a national level, Keith, and even with the organization that you and I are members of with Noble, where are the men at? Where are we at standing with these women and showing support? These women are all standing by themselves, but there is no male officers that are standing there. What is that about?
Well, I don't know if it would be fair to say there's not any standing behind, just because they're not standing there. We don't know.
Well, I think, Keith, when you do it in a public matter, it sends a message.
But we don't know. We all know the camera angles are different. They could be there. They may not be in the camera. They may have been told just the females. So that's just, and it could be that they are fear retaliation. It could be. There's so many different answers to that. Yeah.
Again, I just, you did, again, like you said, they could have been there, but I don't even see the men, where organizations are coming out and Brent just put in the chat, fear of retaliation. Where's the union at with representing these women? The union comes out when there's been an officer involved shooting and saying that, hey, they didn't do anything wrong.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going there because, again,
I would say, really, are you surprised?
No, I'm not surprised, but again, it goes to show you the culture of policing and where policing is at, where policing has been, and where policing is going. Right. And I go back to this 30 by 30 initiative. It is a good initiative, Keith, but is there really that sincere to make sure that women have the same rights as men, and not just to say by the year 2030, we want to make sure that that police departments across the country have 30% of women on their department.
Right.
Where the bigger problem is what these women, or what this lieutenant who was demoted went through in Miami, what these women went through in the DC, and what these women experienced in Baltimore. That is where's that movement there to help those women?
The biggest question is, why is this still happening in 2024?
Well, it's still happening, Keith, because of the male-dominated culture. Because even in one of the clips, even the reporter said, in one of the women said, this is still a very male-dominant culture. Even though you've had some women of color and other women in these positions as police chief, it is still very rigid and dominated by men, and not all by men. It's not. We are, as you know, we are a minority in this profession, and we don't even get there's issues that we're dealing with.
A minority in this what?
In this profession.
That ain't what you said.
What did I say?
Profession.
I said profession, man. I didn't say, no, I said profession, man.
Okay.
You're under the weather, man. So, your ears need to be kind of cleaned out a little bit. But Keith, I think this is a very serious topic.
It is.
Because when is it going to change? And I think, I would have loved to have this conversation with several of our good friends, Vera Bumpers and Linda and CJ, to hear what they're doing to make sure that these things do not happen within their departments, because we know it's not happening.
It's coming at the first of the year, brother.
We know it's not happening, but because they're not in the news.
Right.
But again, I go back to where are the men, and Pam just put in the chat, men are not our allies, or men are not women allies, at least not enough of you all. Again, I think, Keith, you had this conversation at the Noble conference. There was two, brother to brother, sister to sister. I didn't hear the brothers really talking about the sisters, and I wasn't in the sisters to sisters, so I don't know what they all talked about in there. But how do we support each other, and not just to make it look good because we're trying to get to a position and we're trying to be noticed? I think that is something that really needs to be had, that conversation on a national level at some of these conferences about why does this continue to happen, and where are the men at? Is that do you think those conversations are not being had because?
I think they're being had. I just think they're not being disclosed. They're not being. It's not being talked about as much. I think you have a lot of things going on there. Hey, we got you. We're here for you behind the scenes. But when push comes to shove, it's not the visibility is not there.
Yeah. Well, and again, Keith, let me get to this comment that Brent put in the chat. He says, we are in a profession that has a foundation based on knowing your place.
Knowing your place.
And that, where have you heard that term at before?
All my life.
Knowing your place.
Know your place.
And I think, again, if we're going to ever change this profession, and I'm going to ask Brent this question. Brent, do you think that this is a profession that will ever evolve into where we can say things have really turned the corner for the better of men and women in this profession who look like me and Chief Humphrey? Keith, what he says is us versus them. Yeah. Well, Keith, again, man, I just, I think this is something that I would like to talk about going into 2025 and get a panel of women on to have this conversation. and to see where this conversation can grow, because there has to be some change. We can have conversations about it, Keith, but where is that change at, and where's that commitment?
I think we're gonna plan for that. We're gonna have that all-star panel.
Yeah. Well, Pam just put in here
that only I can get.
Oh, golly. Well, Pam just put in the chat that men as allies should be this should be a session at some of our conferences. And you're right, Pam. And I think there's some men who are probably, Keith, and I'm gonna challenge you to this. Is it being afraid not to have the conversation, or is it that it doesn't matter?
I think people don't know how
Just
to
be real. You said it, you don't think. I mean, sometimes, Keith, you just got to have those uncomfortable conversations.
People don't want to have uncomfortable conversations. People don't know how to.
Well, even in our own race, there is prejudice of how we treat Black women. And how can we expect another race, a Latino or a white man, to treat Black women right when we as Black men, not us, but some, don't know how to treat other Black women?
That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, it is. And I'm looking forward to you putting all that together. I'm looking for the swaggy one.
Okay.
To put that together.
You act like that's impossible.
I didn't say it was impossible. I just want to make sure it's going to happen.
Absolutely. It's going to happen.
Okay.
Absolutely. Who am I?
The ultimate beast. Hey, man, once again, we definitely want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight on our YouTube, our LinkedIn, Brent and Pam on Facebook, and all the others who are listening but did not comment. Again, this is a conversation that we need to continue to have if we're really sincere about changing the culture of policing. There was another comment. Brent said this is part of us versus them. Keith, I want to remind everybody, if you do not follow us, go to our Facebook page, like it, share it, follow us, go to our website, which is www.youandthelawpodcast.com, www.youandthelawpodcast.com. Tell your friends about us. We're on Spotify. We're on Amazon Music. We're on all the major podcast platforms. And again, we want to just thank everybody for tuning in. And as you open up the podcast, Keith, we definitely want to continue to think about the men and women in Texas who lost a brother. And, we're coming up on the end of the year, Keith, and hopefully we don't hear about another officer being killed in the line of duty. But unfortunately, it's just the type of business that we're in.
That is so true.
Yeah. So everybody, we want to thank you, and make sure you tune in next Thursday for another informative topic on You and the Law podcast show. Have a good night.